In this video, I'm gonna check with you how to find the equation of a sinusoidal function. So your rule is gonna look like f of x is equal to a sine of b, x minus h plus k. So you'll need to find the amplitude. So you remember that a is your amplitude, but it also, if there's a reflection on your x-axis, that's where we could write it there. B will be related to the period because B is equal to 2 pi over the period, and also can show a reflection on the y-axis if it's negative. H is going to be your horizontal translation, and K is going to be your vertical translation. So if you look at your curve, this is your regular sine shape. So you can try to identify what is A, B, H, and K. And on the next slide, I will do it with you. So you can pause if you want, try to do it on your own, and then on the next slide, you can do it with me. So to find the amplitude, you can look from the middle line in orange to the top. This here is your amplitude, or you can also look from here to down for your amplitude, or you can also do your maximum minus your minimum and then divide that by 2. So here we can see that here this is 5, and on the top it is 7.5, and on the bottom we have 3.5. So our amplitude could be calculated as, sorry, that the maximum is not 7.5, it's 6.5, sorry. So if we do 6.5 minus 3.5, so 6.5 minus 3.5, and then we divide that by 2, we get our amplitude of 1.5. Also, we need to find our b. So b is 2 pi over the period. The period here, I'm going to just show you on the graph. The period is from, let's say, this point to where it repeats here. So it's from 8 here and then going to negative 2. So we can do 8 minus 2, and that's 10. So our period is 10. So we're going to calculate here 2 pi over 10, and we can simplify that. If we divide by 2 up and down, our b will be pi over 5. Now to find our h and k, h is the translation horizontal. So usually our starting point is at 0, but now it's here at negative 2. So our h is going to be negative 2. And k usually is at 0, and now it's up there at 5, the orange dotted line. So our k here is 5. So when it's going to be time to write down your equation, you can write y is equal to 1.5 sine of pi over 5 x minus 2, so x plus 2, and then plus 5. So this would give us the rule using the sine function, but we could also use the same shape, the same curve, and find an equation using cosine. So if you look at the graph again, but then we identify the cosine shape, it's going to look like this. It starts at the top and it's going to go down and back up. So the amplitude is still the same. So this amplitude is still the same. B is still the same because the period is the same period from here to where it repeats is the same period. H is going to be different because usually here our top point is at 0 and now it's here. So the H is the only thing that will be different. Here is going to be, we have to figure out what is this value here. So you know that here this is 2, halfway would be 1, and halfway again would be 0.5. So our h is going to be 0.5. And k is still the orange dotted line here, so k is still the same. So if you want to write down your rule using cosine, it would be 1.5 cosine of pi over 5 x minus 0.5 plus 5. This is one of the rules because you could have decided to start, let's say, down here. If I wanted to start down here, then it would be a negative cosine because I'm starting at the bottom. It would be negative 1.5 cosine, and then my h would be different. My h would be this one here, which is 5.5. So I could use also this rule. It would be minus 1.5 cosine pi over 5 x minus 5.5 plus 5. So you can see that there's lots of rules that we could decide to use. It was the same with sine. I didn't talk about it in the sine, but you could have decided to start here and use a negative sign, for example. So I'll give you one graph to practice. I want you to find two different rules for this graph, one using sine and one using cosine. And you could use Desmos to check if your work is correct, or you can pause the video, try it on your own, and then come back and I'll give you the solution quickly. So here, to find A, B, H, and K, you will need the amplitude, which is this one here. Amplitude is from 1 to 0.5. So your A is 1 minus 0.5, which is equal to 0.5. You can also use the max. This is the max here, and the min is 0. You can also use max minus min and divide that by 2. To find your b, you need 2 pi over the period. The period here is from this point to this point, for example. That's I find the easiest. So from pi over 2 to negative pi over 2. So you can do pi over 2 to find your period. You can do pi over 2 minus pi over 2. So that gives you 2 pi over 2, or so that's 2 pi over 2, or if you simplify, is pi. So your period is pi. So here you're going to have 2 pi over pi. So your b is equal to 2. Your k is going to be the same also for both sine and cosine rule. Your k is this one here. So k is equal to 0.5. And the thing that will change is your h, depending if you're doing a sine rule or a cosine rule. So I'm going to take my highlighter and show you the sine rule. I could decide to use this sine rule, or I could have started here and then go up and down, and imagine it continues here. So I'm going to take the rule in blue. So then my h would be negative 3 pi over 4. If my h here is negative 3 pi over 4, then my rule will be y is equal to 0.5 sine of 2, my b is 2, x minus 3 pi over 4, so plus 3 pi over 4, and then plus your k, which is 0.5. So that would be your rule in sine. Now cosine, I could highlight it in yellow. So for my cosine, I'm going to start up here, come down, and then back up here. So the only thing that will change is my h. My h will be equal to minus pi over 2. So then I can write my rule as 0.5 cosine of 2 x minus pi over 2, so plus pi over 2, and then plus 0.5. Oops, sorry, I'm missing space here, okay? And you can try, what happened if you have tried here at the bottom, then if you use the bottom one here, it would be a negative cosine. You can write down different rules, and you can always use Desmos to check your work. Have fun!